Devastated, confused, heartbroken. So many times in life we get thrown for a curve and don't know how to react.
I can tell you the first time I had sex, how was my marriage going to survive? It's over. I remember standing in front of the judge with my 3-week-old baby, looking at my ex. I saw the look on his face and it was complete rage.
Welcome to When Life Throws You a Curve and How to Make the Adjustment with your host, Katie Hamilton.
Hey everyone, welcome to When Life Throws You a Curve and How to Make the Adjustment. I'm Katie Hamilton. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a very long time since I have been in this beautiful studio. Actually was supposed to have a guest on with me in this very fancy room, but she had a scheduling conflict that came up late last night, so I'm flying solo here, except for my very trusty producer, Mr. Trey Giles. I have a hard time saying that. Oh, Trey, tell me how you've been, what you've been up to these last 4 months. It's been since December since I've been here, so I have not seen your precious face in quite a while.
For sure. I mean, everything's been being kind of busy, which is a good problem to have nowadays because, you know, a lot of people out of work, a lot of people wishing that they were busy. So I will not complain about it being busy, but it's been a very busy time just adjusting to everything. Corona shut a lot of things down, so the city stopped and restarted at the same time. So just trying to get adjusted to everything, really, you know?
Yes, it's been since 2020. I haven't seen you
it's been a
since
while.
The new year.
It's been a while, but you're looking lovely as usual. That hasn't changed.
Well, thank you. Likewise, sir.
I like the outfit. What is that? Is that fuchsia? Is that pink? What is it?
This would be, I would call this like a soft pink.
I like it. It.
Thank you. I always
nice.
think pink looks good in this fancy room.
Absolutely.
This is actually my favorite room. Obviously, usually I have a guest if I'm in here because the lighting and the ambiance.
Sure.
It all works.
You add that extra oomph to the room as well. I promise you.
Oh, you're too sweet.
I promise you.
Well, thank you. But I have missed you so much.
Missed you as well. What have you been up to though? How have you been during this whole time?
Oh, Trey, the last 4 months, well, let's just say 2021, okay? It started out with a bang, and it has not slowed down for me at all.
Wow.
I kind of had a feeling coming into 2021 that it was going to be a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. I kept seeing everybody's posts, 2020 is over, finally, I didn't have that feeling. Sure. I did not think that when the date changed, and there's a reason for that, but, I also didn't think it would be quite this hectic. I say hectic, it's busy. I moved into this temporary space, and, I've got a whole bunch of girls.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a whole bunch of stuff. So now we have a whole bunch of storage rooms, and we didn't unpack because, we sort of unpacked, but not really, because we're moving again. But, I don't know if you know this, but the market was already pretty
slim,
pretty busy before COVID and everything. Well, it is out of control. I have put offers in on 10 different houses.
10?
10. And for me to even find 10 houses that I like enough, I'm not even talking about in love with. I'm like, this'll be fine.
Yeah.
This'll work.
Yeah.
This'll do, 10. And they've been full priced offers, cash, just in every city. I've looked in every city. I have not gotten any of them.
Wow.
Actually, I take that back. I did get one,
Okay.
but I did got the inspection report, and I did not like what I saw. And I know that whatever I take on, that responsibility is going to be on me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't want to have you don't want to add an extra headache at all.
Oh, no.
And I can tell by your demeanor that you just were not feeling it.
Oh, no, sir.
Yeah.
No. These people had never had their house checked for termites. They had never, it was just a lot of stuff that I feel like pretty common sense or standard.
Absolutely.
I don't know. In fact, this is actually comical, and then I'll finish telling you kind of what I've been up to. But I finally decided I'm going to go back and see a house that I saw a long time ago, because I actually have a builder now that I've been working with. He built a house that I love, but he only does like remodels or new builds.
Okay.
And I haven't really wanted to do a new build. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask Mike about this house I saw a long time ago. I didn't really want to take on the remodel. It had a lot of stone in it, and busting through stone's expensive, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. The house has been on the market for 300 days. And I coordinated everybody's schedule, my real estate agent, because I never got my license in Texas. Mm-hmm. And I have it in other states, but not here.
Okay.
They've got the builder, on board to come see the house. It got 3 offers yesterday. 3 offers after it's been on the market for 300 days.
I think it's the Katie magic.
I think God is like, no, sis, you are not buying a house right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we have to be out of the house we're in 5 weeks.
Oh wow! So that is a heck of a time crunch.
I know. And my kids were supposed to get out of school May 21st, but because of like Snowmageddon, they added an extra week. So I'll be moving while, that last week, the whole month of May actually is always a very busy time for moms.
Of course.
If they've got kids in school, because it's like teacher gifts and exams. May and December.
You know what, though? I think May is also, even though it's a busy month for moms, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, May is also a good month for moms because of Mother's Day, right? Like
that's right.
Mother's Day is right around the corner.
I see, I totally forgot about Mother's Day. Oh, and you know what? I have the best mom. Her birthday was yesterday. Mm-hmm. She's just like the sweetest, coolest woman.
Oh, gosh.
So, so the moving thing has happened, and is about to happen again, although we don't know where we're going. If anyone out there has a home that you would like to sell, I would love for you to consider me. Although I have to, in full disclosure, there are millions of people moving from every other state.
This is true.
And they don't mind paying $200,000 and $300,000 over asking price. So you should probably take their offer. I mean, I would if I were you.
Absolutely.
But I know God has a spot for us, and if I do have to, move into another rental and either build or wait till the market goes down, I'm okay with that, because I feel like the market can't stay like this forever.
Absolutely.
It's got, and it's been painful for me to even think about having to buy a house at like in such a seller's market. Mm-hmm. So I'm always looking for a deal.
Sure.
So we'll see. Other than that, I've been working very diligently on my book. My goal with my editor was for me to be done with all of the content, like the main content, by the end of April, end of this month.
Okay.
The thing is, I have so much content. I'm talking like I have a stack of typed out, that's just 1/4 of my content.
Sure.
And over the last 4 months, I have learned some very, very interesting, fascinating, almost frustrating information, just because this information would have been like so amazing to have about 20 years ago. There's been like things, like certain pieces to a puzzle that I have desperately wondered about, and I actually have the answer now.
Oh, wow.
Which has been amazing. I mean, amazing. And obviously I know we can't change the past. I can take the information now, but adding that into this book, which it's a beautiful blend, but it's just trying to decide what is going to go in, what's not going to go in.
Sure.
It's a challenge.
Absolutely.
And because, my kids are in sports, they're in school, they've got homework, I I have to write very late at night. And I usually, like these days, I'm getting up about 4 a.m. every day to get this done. I don't know if I'm going to meet the end of April deadline.
Sure.
But, ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. Trey, in the writing process, I record myself and then I go back and obviously make the content so much better than what I speak out. But I have had the painful experiences of listening to myself, and I say,
Oh gosh.
way too much. And whoever has listened to this show, podcast, or watched me, bless you.
You brought that up earlier too when we were on the phone. We were having a conversation on the phone. I think you are a lot hard on yourself also. Like you don't say it that much, for one. For two, your voice doesn't sound bad at all. So if you do say it, it's like music to our ears almost, in a way.
You are the sweetest. This is why you get paid the big bucks, because you're just like this. Oh my gosh, I love you.
I think you're a little hard on yourself, Katie. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Well, I may be, but I'm telling you, it is painful. It picks up everything. The uhs, like, I have to go through and cross out, on this sheet before I even actually start to delve into the content.
Right.
But when I write from scratch, the style of my writing is so different than the style of my talking.
Sure.
But if you had asked me, I would have said, oh, I write exactly the same as I talk. I do not. Such is not the case. That's the other thing. I use a lot of words. I use a lot of words talking. Yeah. I use a overwhelming amount writing. So my sweet editor, and he's a man, so obviously he has less words.
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna give that to him and let him. I'm gonna mark out the knows because that's just annoying.
Sure.
But
gonna allow him to put it in man terms for you is what it sounds like.
But just so everyone knows, I have taken these last 4 months that I haven't been in the studio to really reflect on my speaking, and I am working diligently on it. So hopefully one day, maybe I'll say, as you know, more than just, Anyway, it's, that's what I've been up to. There's also been some very challenging extracurricular activities that I've been dealing with for a very long time, and to know that there's really no end in sight until at least the summer of 2023 is kind of a bummer, because it's just not anything I want to be having to deal with. Sure. I feel like it's not, as it relates to my children, that I'm always 1,000,000%. I will do anything in the world to make sure they are safe, happy, healthy, and their well-being is my, obviously my highest priority. But there's some other stuff that I'm having to deal with that is like a world of insanity. And some of the things that I've learned over the last few months have really connected these dots for me. So whenever I am able to share about this, I can tell you it's one of the most interesting subjects, and by far and away, I am extremely passionate about it. I'm passionate about many things, identity, my love for the Lord, obviously my kids, but this discovery, this revelation, how I didn't learn about it in all these years, I don't know. Wow. But I am deeply passionate about it, and it's something that I will probably talk about for the rest of my life, because if I can help one person avoid it or know what they're dealing with, I don't want anyone to ever ever have to go through what I've gone through.
Absolutely.
And because I don't really have a lot of community here in Texas, I don't have family here. I don't really have a lot of time for friendships, which, it could be challenging. But I'm going to use any avenue possible to really, really share this information as soon as I'm able. It's not quite yet, but very, very soon. And it has been life-changing. So the last 4 months for me have been full, busy.
To say the least.
In every sense of the word.
Exactly.
But, I am so blessed.
And that's true.
We all are so very blessed. I'm grateful that COVID is starting to, feel like it's getting, under control.
Sure.
Texas is opened back up. I saw on TV the Rangers, their opening day had a full house, which was really cool to see. And I have not been to the new stadium, but I've heard it's really great. And I'm going to a hockey game next week. I went to one a few weeks ago, or I guess it's been a couple months ago, because my daughter's boyfriend plays hockey, and their team's coming back in. And at that time, the stadium was at maybe 25% or 50% capacity, but I think they're upping their limits.
So is this the AAC, or is this the field house, the new Rangers?
What's the AAC?
You said they're upping their capacity?
For the NHL.
For the NHL, okay. So
I think they are.
Okay, got you.
I know they are in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is where that's his home team, is the Hurricanes.
Okay.
They had no fans for a long time, and then they opened up to 25%. So seeing that 25% there, and then seeing like the Rangers ballpark at full capacity was crazy. So I'm excited to go to the game Monday and see how many fans are at the Star Stadium.
Absolutely, it should be exciting.
Yeah, I actually love hockey. I dated a hockey player for a very short time.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't really into him, actually. I worked at a doctor's office. I was the triage nurse, and I was actually pregnant, but he didn't know it, and he asked me out many times, and I always was like, no, because I was pregnant. But after I had Julia, I did go out with him a couple times.
Oh, gosh. Just wasn't your cup of tea.
Say again?
Was not your cup of tea.
He wasn't really my cup of tea, but what's so funny is, I think I've mentioned to you, I know I mentioned it to Cash. Julia had signed me up for Bumble, like several years ago.
Sure.
And I matched with his brother.
Oh, no.
When I was in Raleigh, and I think his brother and maybe him, they were on The Amazing Race. They were like the brother is a firefighter.
Okay.
And I was like, wait a second. I think I dated your brother like 20 years ago. Good, I guess the brother's still single. I don't know what happened to the hockey player, but he's retired. But it's just funny because he played for the Hurricanes, and Julia's boyfriend plays for the Hurricanes.
That's hilarious. The world is too small.
It is.
The world is too small.
It's wild. I got my real estate license when I was 19, and she's still modeling, but she got her license also at 19 in Raleigh. So
nice.
Proud mom moment. Anyway, but and also I'll update you real quick on my kids. Okay. My 15-year-old has had multiple injuries to her leg.
Oh, wow.
She's had 2 surgeries and got her cast off about a month ago and was just cleared. She was 3 days away from getting cleared to start working out. And she broke it again.
No, really?
So she is back in a cast. This has been going on since like September of 2019. It has been a very painful journey.
Sure.
But hopefully, Lord willing, she won't have to have any more surgeries, and the cast will be off before summer.
Okay.
So, here's hoping. Lord Jesus, let it be.
It will be. It will be. Just put positive energy out. You'll get positive energy back.
I'm going to do like a full-on healing on that ankle. Like, I rebuke any more injuries to it in Jesus' name.
There we go. And that's all you need.
That's right. That is right.
I know it's been a crazy 4 months for you, but I heard one time, and it's always stuck with me. You can't have a testimony without a test first.
You know it.
Somebody told me that a long time ago, and that's always been something that's been in my wheelhouse. Like since then, you can't have a testimony without a test. So
That's right. Your mess becomes your message. And I don't know who quoted this, but I have loved this one. Like, you don't get the rainbow without the rain.
Ooh, I like that.
So, and for me personally, regardless of what swirls around and the hurricanes that, you know, are, this thing now is on my last nerve. I am now on my last nerve. Y'all just got to bear with me, please. I am working on it.
Push through, sis.
It's crazy when you hear yourself back so much. Like, now I recognize it. I would have never known. I was totally oblivious. I thought I was actually speaking eloquently. Not so much.
You are not that bad, I promise.
But anyway, well, it has been so good to catch up with you, Trey. I am going to delve in to some really interesting content. I think it's interesting. Aside from this revelation information that I've discovered over the last 4 months that I'm clearly passionate about because I've spent, 15 minutes talking about it. The content and topic we're going to discuss today is one of the other things, one of a few things that has been life-changing for me. Something I discovered when I was 23. And this episode actually has been a long time coming, so I'm looking forward to sharing it with everybody. I think I hope that it blesses you all. This situation and circumstance that I learned about when I was 23 changed my life, and it's something that I still walk in and live out today, and it has never, the significance of it has not waned or been dialed down or anything in all of these years. It is still as powerful today as it was X amount of years ago.
Gosh.
Well, it's been so good catching up with you, Trey.
It's been good catching up with you as well, Katie. It's always a pleasure. I've missed you also. Always my pleasure.
Thank you. It's good to be back. All right, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Welcome back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I've been waiting a really long time to share this specific episode with you all. I had to rewatch my last show before, as I said, I was planning to have a guest today. And when I found out she wasn't going to be able to come, I was like, oh my goodness, where did I leave off? Because if you guys have followed the podcast, I had really just started getting going, and then COVID happened. So then we made the adjustment, which, part of what we do here. Otherwise, we shouldn't be hosting this show. But I couldn't remember what was the last episode that I recorded, because I wanted to pick up. Then, before I took this 4-month break, I had just started picking up where I left off, because I really do have a lot that has never been shared, and I don't share it just just for fun. I really share this stuff because I feel that it will absolutely help people. I can tell you for sure there's been so many life-changing things, and when I'm trying to get advice and have help navigating things that are way over my head, I'm always seeking people that have lived longer or been through something and have come out on the other side, and I want their wisdom, I want their insight. So whatever little bit I might have, I always want to share it. So the last episode, I talked some about some of the challenges that I went through in the first year of my marriage. I definitely didn't get into the vast majority of them, but I shared enough for everyone to know that it was not good. It was the nightmare of all nightmares, And for sure, for a 23-year-old who had felt like their life was finally coming together, I really felt like that things were finally falling into place. And I know I haven't shared a lot about my childhood or, adolescent years, but that's in my book. So, and maybe there'll be a time when I share it, but I was so excited to get married. And then if you recall, I was completely blindsided 2 months after I was married with finding out my husband took my wedding rings, pawned them for crack. There was just this alternate reality that I was living in. I mean, it was earth-shattering. And I shared a lot about that. And I ended that episode with how I found my peace, how I found, Christ in the eye of the storm and in the hurricane that was swirling around, that was my life, that was so earth-shattering and heartbreaking to me. But through that, all of that, I really leaned in to the Lord, and my relationship with Him has been my foundation ever since. Even though I knew Him, I was saved when I was 4. I accepted Him as my Savior from a very young age. I was raised in church. I knew Scripture, but I didn't know Jesus the way I got to know Him. And what I didn't get to share is actually what I want to talk about today, because it wasn't like all of these really challenging, horrific, terrible, awful things happened and then it was all a bed of roses with me and Jesus. There was some in-between time that I went through that I didn't get to share, and that's really what I want to talk about, because that time in my life, and there's a few different pieces to it. Today we're going to talk about the freedom of forgiveness, which completely, utterly changed how I've lived my life ever since then. So it's been, 16 or 17 years? And I've lived in forgiveness as a way of life, but that did not just happen, and it did not come easily to me in the beginning. I didn't think it was going to be easy. It wasn't even on my radar, to be quite honest. So I'm going to pick up like middle of the way through. And when you have your hope set on something, and it not only does it not turn out the way you thought, it is completely, utterly, in every way, shape, and form, the opposite, and so much worse than anything you ever could fathom existing. I mean, I didn't know anything about crack. I didn't have any idea that this was a part of my then husband's life. And there was a part of me that felt totally and completely hoodwinked, because he waited until we got married. He waited until I got pregnant. He waited until after we bought a house. All of these things until I was, I was in the mix then. It wasn't like I could get my marriage annulled before he let this cat out of the bag. And I kept thinking, okay, surely, because I knew I heard from God, or at least I thought I did. And I've shared that story before. And because I felt so strongly that I heard from God, every time he would relapse or use, which was often, there was this deep sense of, okay, maybe this is the last time. Maybe that's it. Because I was very, very convinced that I had heard from the Lord, and that Josh was going to go back and play baseball, and it was going to be about the miracle that God performed in our lives, and we were going to share it with the world. But yet, as the months progressed, that did not seem possible. In fact, it seemed like we were getting farther and farther and farther and farther away from that. And as the months went on, I'm thinking, okay, if that's going to happen, then it's going to be the birth of our daughter Sierra. I didn't have her name yet, but I kept thinking, I just have to make it to September because that's when she was due. So my birthday was in July, and this is something that I talk about in my book in much more detail, this idea or feeling of feeling celebrated or not feeling celebrated, which was the case for me for so many years. And I called Josh and I said, hey, this is the first birthday that we're married. And so, of course, I'm, still really holding on to this hope that things are going to get better, even though there's no sign of it. But I'm the eternal optimist, and I felt like I heard from God so strongly. So I'm always going to believe the best and hope for the best. And I called Josh and I said, hey, where are you? What's going on? He was like, oh, I'm out shopping for your birthday. I was like, oh, well, that's nice. I said, well, my sister's actually having a party for me. So do you think you could go there? And I'm not really a gift kind of girl. I mean, it's very, very sweet if you want to buy me something, but it's not, I love to give gifts. I'm just not much of a gift giver. I would have so much rather Josh been at my birthday party and just spent the time with me. And my ex was there at the party because his birthday is 2 days before mine. I mean, even though we're 4 years apart. And he's friends with, my family. So he was there. My family's there. And everyone's like, well, where's Josh? Where's Josh? Where's Josh? I was like, oh, well, he said he was birthday shopping for me. But, deep in my heart, I had that check in my spirit. Like, okay, he's been out for like the entire day. I'm really not that hard to buy for. And plus, I really don't even care to have anything. I just really wanted him to be at the party. Well, of course, he did not come. And when he finally did come home, without a gift, by the way, there was no birthday gift. And again, that was not the point. But he did come home with something that I was not real happy about. He was actually out getting high and getting a massive, massive tattoo on his arm. And for me, I thought, okay, when you get married, there's just certain things that are taken off the table as options, like having an affair, going out and spending elaborate amount of money. Oh, hey, doing drugs. And maybe getting a huge tattoo that I'm going to have to look at for the rest of my life. So I thought. And whoever did that tattoo, I mean, I actually really like tattoos. I didn't then. In fact, when we first started dating, I was like, oh, he's so sweet, but he's got all those tattoos. I was like, that's fine. It's not like I'm not going to marry him. I'll just date him for a little while. But I love tattoos now. But that one is not good. Whoever did it was on whatever he was on. And I just kept thinking, you've been out all day. You said you were shopping for my birthday. You missed my party. And you came home with this massive tattoo. It was like little things like that, big things, all of these things kept happening over and over again. And my hope that was set on Sierra's birthday, which is probably why I don't get my hopes set on a new year, because I did have my hopes set on this date. And when that date came and went, I will say Josh was at the hospital when I had Sierra. He was there physically. I mean, the lights were on, but, nobody was really home. And that was pretty much the entire first year of our marriage, or at least the first 10 months before I had to get a restraining order, protective order on him. But the day finally came, and I I mean, I had all my eggs in that basket, and I think I've mentioned this before on the show. And when we came home from the hospital, he said he was going to go get my prescriptions, and he didn't come back. He was at a bar. I called the bar. Josh didn't have a cell phone at the time. And I said, is Josh Hamilton there by chance? The guy said, yeah. I put him on the phone. And as soon as he got on the phone, even when the guy said, yeah, he's here, it was like that hope that I had set on that date. Because in my limited mind, because God's ways are so much higher than our ways, that was the only thing that I could wrap my mind around that maybe would be the thing that God used. If I really heard from him, and if Josh was actually going to go back and play baseball and was going to perform this miracle in his life that we were going to share with the world, in my limited mind, I thought it's going to have to be something big. And for me, there was nothing bigger on the radar than the birth of our daughter. And when he couldn't even make it 5 minutes down the street to get my prescriptions, my hope in all of that really just, it just evaporated in an instant. And I really began to question, seriously, Katie, did you really hear from God? Oh, on one hand, it was like I knew I did. But on the other hand, it was like, what the heck are you thinking? No, you didn't hear from God. There is nothing in your life at all whatsoever that would ever add up to you hearing from God and Josh going back and playing baseball, which, Katie, you've never even seen him play baseball, and I hadn't. Of course, I didn't know about the crack thing either, and I'm seeing this man just waste away. And, so I'm thinking, okay, this is, I knew at that moment things were really, really bad. I knew they were bad. I mean, I was having drug dealers call me. I had fixed all manner of things in my house. I talked about this on the last episode. I'm not going to go into all the detail because I really want to get to the point of this episode, because the point of the episode is so good. But getting to that point was very, very painful, and it was a very hard road for me. So I've talked about my relationship with the Lord and how much it had grown over this year in this absolute chaos I was experiencing, in this absolute nightmare that was supposed to be like my fairy tale dream come true, that actually was the worst nightmare I couldn't have imagined it, because it would never have entered my mind as even a possibility. And I started getting really, really angry. My hope had disappeared. At that moment when I knew Josh didn't make it to the pharmacy, it wasn't the birth of our daughter, he was not changing. At that point, I really saw reality in a way that I hadn't seen it, and the hope that I had, it was gone. So now I'm starting to get pissed off. And I didn't like how that felt, because I had grown so much in my relationship with the Lord. But it was like I had maxed out on my growth factor spiritually. And the anger, which anger in and of itself is not a sin, if it's righteous anger. I mean, Jesus went in and flipped over the tables in the temple, and that was a righteous anger. That was not a sinful anger. But the Bible says, like, in your anger, do not sin. Well, my anger was turning very unrighteous, and I was getting very, very bitter, and resentment was setting in pretty quickly. I mean, I kept thinking, like, how dare he do this? It was so, it was just so much, and it was like I had reached my max capacity at that, at that time for this nonsense. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got 2 kids now. I have a house that has been destroyed. I have cars that have been destroyed. I mean, I was constantly fixing things, trying to, I mean, I when the people that I got him committed to the mental hospital didn't keep him, that was, you know, a bummer. That was more than a bummer. But like, I had tried all of these things and nothing worked. So I had run out of hope, and I had become angry and bitter and resentful. And I did not like how that felt. But I also, at the same time, I didn't know what to do about it, because I felt like my anger was justified, but I knew it was the feelings I was having, it was hindering my growth with the Lord. But I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to get rid of that. It was just so disconnected. And by the way, at that point, I figured, well, you missed that, Katie. You did not hear from God clearly. You know, and still there was a part of me that was like, I know I did. But reality said, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. So for about a month, I considered not what was I going to do. I knew I had to get away from Josh. I knew it wasn't safe for me to be around him. I knew it wasn't safe for my kids to be around him. But I really, really struggled with actually following through on the thing that I knew I had to do. Now, I had set many boundaries, and how I knew to set boundaries was just a supernatural thing, because most people, I've learned, in relationships that that resembled what I was going through, have a hard time setting boundaries. And I understand that, because when you set a boundary, this person that you love is going to look at you and tell you how much they hate you and what a piece of absolute shit you are. And they may be violent, they may be rageful, they may do all manner of things that is not acceptable in any way, shape, and form. But I also knew, I know what I have to do, because if I really love Josh, and if I'm really a mother who cares about being excellent, I have to set a boundary that is the biggest boundary that I could ever set in a marriage. And for me, it felt like a knife in the coffin. And even though I knew I didn't cause all of those things, for me to have to go and be the one to get that restraining order, it felt like I was sealing the fate of our marriage. And that was a very, very, very hard reality. But I knew I had to do it. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have an attorney. The thought of an attorney didn't even register in my mind. But I figured I could figure it out, So I went to the courthouse, and it was 1 year to the day of our engagement. It was October 10th. We got engaged October 10th, 2004. On October 10th, 2005, I was at the courthouse. I had to go in front of the judge. And in North Carolina, if you're going to get a protective order or restraining order, you fill out the paperwork, you get on the stand, you share what's going on. And if the judge decides to give you a temporary order, you get that. And then you come back for your hearing for your permanent, for the permanent judgment 3 weeks later. So that's what we did. And Josh actually showed up for that court hearing, which I was a little surprised about, because whenever I would set a boundary with him or say something to him, I didn't really ever know what was registering, like what he understood, what he didn't understand, because I wasn't in his head. I could just see what I saw, and I saw a human that was not there and was wasting away and very, very close to dying. I mean, I think I've mentioned this. I took out the money of our bank accounts because he had spent $100,000 on crack in 6 weeks. Now, this went on for, almost an entire year. And what I know now, he's not made it sober really for more than 10 months ever since he was 20. But, I found that out years ago. But $100,000 on crack's very cheap back in the day. I don't know if it is now, but he should have been dead many times over. And the chances of him living, in my estimation, were very slim. But of course, I wanted him to live. I wanted him to be well. But I wanted all of these things for him, and he didn't want them for himself. And the judge said to him, Mr. Hamilton, by the way, I was in there in the courtroom with my, 3-week-old baby. And I think by that time she was a little bit older, but I had the baby in the courtroom. I didn't know you weren't supposed to have a baby in there, but no one said anything to me. And the judge starts to read a few of the things that I had written in this affidavit. And she said, Mr. Hamilton, your wife's saying that you're on drugs, that you've done X, Y, and Z. She read a few of the things. He was like, yeah. She said, you are okay. Do you have any plans to get sober? Your wife is over there with your infant child. She was she seemed, very taken aback by his just blatant, yeah, that's true. Because the things that I had written were pretty concerning, to say the least. She said, do you have any plans to get sober? He said, no. She didn't have to finish reading any of the allegations. She said, okay, then, Mrs. Hamilton, I'm going to grant your protective order for, it was either a year or 3 years, I can't remember, and she told Josh he wasn't allowed to come, within 500 feet of us or yards of us or whatever it was. And for me, that was like, okay, that's the nail in the coffin. And let me tell you, I was heartbroken, and I was angry, and I was pissed off, and I was furious, and I was frustrated because I was the one that I had to pick up all the pieces. I had to go get the house fixed and repaired. I had to get it on the market. I had to fix our vehicles. I had to take care of my, little baby daughter and my other daughter. And of course I'm thinking, and Josh is just out there, enjoying his crack. And that, that's really, that span of time is when I felt like my growth with the Lord was at max capacity. But like I said, I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't want to feel the way that I felt, but I didn't know how to not feel that way, because there had been some really, 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 really bad things done to me. I don't have to go into those details, just the things that I've said, bad enough. So I knew, obviously, all of this had been out of my realm of experience. I didn't know what to do about it. But the thing that I was really upset about was the fact that I was so angry, and I was bitter, and I was so resentful, and I was just so effing pissed off. Because, like I said, I was the one that had to pick up all the pieces, and there was no punishment for him in my mind. And I wanted him to have to pay for what he's done. So I knew to go to my pastor's house. He and his wife are two of the most amazing people. My pastor, actually, in North Carolina, he passed away recently, but I am so grateful for him and Beverly. And I sat in their living room, and I shared with them everything. Way more than I've ever shared publicly, ever. I shared all of it. And I did not spare one detail. And they knew how angry I was. And I knew that Jimmy and Beverly had a tremendous amount of wisdom. Wisdom is something that I've prayed for since I was like 5 years old. And I knew that whatever wisdom they had, I needed. So Jimmy looked at me and he said, Katie, I know exactly what we need to do, what you need to do. I was like, oh, okay, finally, thank you. What is it? How are we going to get him? I mean, how are we going to get him? That is what I wanted to know. And Jimmy had a plan, and I wanted to hear it. And he looked at me, and he said, well, you need to forgive him. I said, I'm sorry, what was that? I said, did you not just hear what I said, what he's done? He said, oh, no, I heard you. I heard you. I mean, I did not spare details. And I talked for a good solid hour and a half, maybe longer. And I replayed everything for him. And he said, no, I heard you. He said, Katie, he said, I know what you've gone through is totally unacceptable. And you were right to set the boundaries that you've set. He said, but your anger and your bitterness and your resentment is not affecting Josh. It's affecting you. And as soon as he said that, like literally as soon as the words left his mouth, I knew he was absolutely right. And at the time, I didn't quite understand that when you forgive someone, it doesn't mean that you agree with that behavior or that you accept that behavior. I was still learning those things. And I was learning how boundaries fit into that equation and all of that. Although I will say, thankfully, I learned those lessons, life skills, whatever you want to call it, pretty quickly early on in that first year of marriage, which, again, I was 23. Actually, I think I may have just turned 24. But as soon as he said, it's affecting you, it's not affecting Josh. He may have given me the example that we all know, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And there was a part of me that was like, oh my gosh, he is so right. But on the flip side, I was like, but no. I can't forgive him because that's going to let him off the hook. And we cannot be letting him off the hook because remember, he needs to pay. He needs to feel some level of pain that I have felt. He's not felt any pain. Now, of course, knowing what I know now, he's in all kinds of pain. It's a different type of pain, but pain is pain. But I didn't know that then. And I did want him to feel some pain. But I also heard Jimmy loud and clear. And I sat back for a few minutes and I thought about all the things that I know I've been forgiven for. I know how flawed of a human being that I am. And God gave me forgiveness and grace and mercy. And it was like, well, how dare Katie not extend that to someone else? When I needed it and I accepted it, got up on that offer, and I started thinking about my teenage years and, the choices that I made and just like throughout my life leading up to that point and still, even in those moments, like I knew I was not perfect and I knew I needed grace and I knew I needed forgiveness. And I thought about all the times where I knew better than to do something and I did it anyway. Regardless of whether I wanted to do it, regardless of whether I was, in fear, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what my excuse was. I absolutely did things that I knew were wrong. I did them anyway. And I had an opportunity in this moment to be an obedient daughter of the Lord and act like the person that I was with my identity in Christ as his daughter and make make a different choice, make a right choice, be able to be obedient to God. And because I had grown so much in my relationship with him in the months leading up to this, these moments, I was so excited. I went from, hell no, I will not be letting him off the hook. That is not something that will be happening, to, okay, yeah, actually, I've been extended forgiveness. It is affecting me. Jimmy was like, you're playing that rewind tape over and over in your mind, thinking about every single thing Josh has done. And it's not affecting him. It's affecting you. And I knew that was right. I knew that's what was happening. And then I went, from here to here saying, oh my goodness, like I have a chance to be obedient and to act the way that God created me to be as a new creation in Christ, and to make a different choice. And I went from hell no to, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to forgive Josh. And I knew it had nothing to do with him. I was excited to do it because I wanted to be an obedient daughter, and to an obedient daughter of God. So I got in my car, and you're not really supposed to talk to somebody if you have a protective order, but I couldn't help myself. I called him at his grandmother's house, and she reluctantly put him on the phone. And I said, I won't keep you on the phone long. I know we're not supposed to be talking, but I just need to let you know that I forgive you for everything that you've done. Now, granted, forgiveness and accepting someone's behavior as okay, it's not condoning the behavior. I did not condone it, and I made sure, very sure, to teach my children how to love safely from a distance, and to make sure that it's very, very clear that when you forgive someone, it frees you. Okay, I did not know this in those moments, but I said to Josh, I'm forgiving you. You don't have to want my forgiveness. You don't have to be sorry. You don't have to change what you're doing, but you have my forgiveness. And he had no reaction. Very, very similar, actually, to when I told him that, I heard from God and you're going to go back and play baseball, da, 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 da. He just, like, in that moment, he looked at me and he was like, okay. On the phone, he was like, okay. And that was it. End of the conversation. It did not matter, not one tiny little bit, that he had no response, because this was not about him. And I will tell you, God was so faithful in those moments to take away every single ounce of anger and bitterness and resentment that I had been feeling. And I mean, I had been feeling it at a very high level. He took it away instantaneously. And I never felt those things again. And I know sometimes forgiveness doesn't feel that, you don't feel the effects maybe that minute. But I would challenge you that I can give you a test of whether or not you've really extended forgiveness. This is something that I've learned. I'll tell you about that in a second. But anyway, we hung up the phone. I felt so free. And I learned this beautiful lesson of forgiveness, because when we have unforgiveness in us, it is literally a cord strangling. We're strangling ourselves with it. And when we choose to forgive, we cut that cord, and it sets us free completely. The person that's being forgiven absolutely may get a benefit, but we, as the forgiver, we get the blessing. And I have been able to live in forgiveness as a way of life ever since that day. And it's not that there has not been things done that have been very, very wrong. And I've put up many boundaries, and I've got boundaries in places right now. And I can tell you, this year and 2020, there have been so many things that have been done personally to me that I haven't been able to share yet, and to my kids, but also to me, that are absolutely unacceptable in every sense of the word. But I can put up a boundary I can walk in forgiveness. I can walk in freedom because my joy is not dependent on another person. My joy is anchored in Christ. And He is the forgiver. He is the grace giver. He gives us mercy. He gives us so much love. And when we are overflowing with all of those things and every fruit of the Spirit, you don't live in bondage. You can't live in bondage. You're completely free from that. And that lesson of forgiveness and the freedom that it brought, it changed my life in such a profound way that it's not something I've ever struggled with. There's been plenty of things I've struggled with, but forgiveness has never been an issue for me. If anything, I would say when I put up boundaries, I have to be very careful that I don't take the boundaries down too quickly, because I can be a little too trusting. I can be, I can still be naive sometimes. That's actually been a pretty challenging lesson that I've learned over the years. But what I would love to just leave you with a thought, because I've talked to so many people that have said to me, well, forgiveness for you may have been like that, but, it's not that way for me, and I'm, still struggling. A really good litmus test, I think that's what it's called, of whether or not you've actually truly forgiven someone that has offended you or hurt you or whatever it is when you think about that situation or you think about that person, if there's any feelings that come up of tension, anger, bitterness, rage, wanting to retaliate, anything that is opposite of the fruit of the Spirit, I would challenge you that true forgiveness probably has not actually taken place, because when real forgiveness has truly happened and taken root, you can think about that person, you can think about that situation, and while you may not agree with the behavior, and there's many behaviors that are not acceptable, and if you're in an unsafe situation, you need to get into a safe situation. These things are not forgiveness and condoning. Please do not misunderstand. They're different. You can forgive someone and not condone their behavior and not put up with their behavior, because that is, if the behavior is unacceptable, then it's unacceptable. But if you've truly forgiven them, when you think about that person and you think about the situation that hurt you or harmed you or whatever, and you feel peace, then you know that true forgiveness has actually happened. And if that's not the case, continue to release it to the Lord. Ask God to help you, to give you the strength to forgive, to help you navigate that. Ask Him, what is it in me that is, still holding on to this? And He will show you. He will show you. He is faithful. He's not a respecter of persons. So if He could free me and continue to, I've walked in the freedom that forgiveness brings for all of these years, even though there have been offense after offense after offense after offense, and so many hurts. He can do it for anybody, and He wants to do it for everyone. So I would encourage you to take Him up on that offer and free yourself from the baggage of unforgiveness, because it certainly is not hurting that other person, but I guarantee you it's going to hurt you. And as sons and daughters of the King of Kings, we have the opportunity and the inheritance to walk in freedom in every area. Most certainly forgiveness being, at the top of the list, right up there. So that is my challenge, and just something that I've really wanted to share with you guys because it was so life-changing for me, and I know it will be life-changing for you. If you have any questions or you want more information, please reach out to me. You can send me a DM on Instagram, or you can email me at katie@katiehamilton.com, and I would love to delve more into that with you if the need is there. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I've missed being in the studio. I've missed being on the podcast, and y'all pray for us to find a house. And I will see you next time on When Life Throws You a Curve and How to Make the Adjustment. Come find me on social media on Instagram and Twitter at Katie Hamilton 32, on Facebook at Katie Hamilton and at When Life Throws You a Curve 32, and on YouTube at Katie Hamilton.
The content provided here was supplied by a third party for display on our platform. The content is not owned or created by Real News PR. The views and opinions are those of the creator.